Good evening, everybody. Welcome again to another live stream session here on DearSA, or the home of Dear South Africa, on YouTube and on Facebook. And Rob, it's actually good to see you again. I think it's been about close to 2, maybe even 3 weeks since we've last sat down on this channel together. How are you doing, sir, there in the darkness?
Always good, Gideon. Always good. Yeah, it has been too long, and I thought I'd show my face today, and showing on my face today. Yes.
Well, I was about to say, like, is the darkness metaphoric for one of the campaigns we happen to be running, or that we have started running and that we're going to be talking about tonight, maybe?
It might be. It might be. There's a lot of dark campaigns with a lot of questions. So yeah, maybe it is. Maybe I should put my glasses on, then I can actually see what's going on.
Well, while you do that, I'm going to just catch the audience up quickly. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Those of you who have tuned in on the YouTubes, please, if you wouldn't mind, and I hate doing this, just hit the like button. It does, for some bizarre reason, affect the algorithm, and then a couple more people will hopefully know that we are live and going. And while you're getting settled in, hopefully with a cup of coffee, Rob, a lot's been happening on the public participation front, not just over the past, I think, 2 weeks, but specifically this week as well. Would you like to maybe take us through a quick journey about what's the latest at the coalface, and then we can maybe dive into the actual campaigns that are running that we want people to know about?
Yeah, sure. So there's quite a bit happening, especially with the Health Act regulations. That's always an eventful time, and we've had a great progress on that. We're one of the few organisations that's still, in fact, I think we're the only organisation that actually still has a case lodged there. Well, obviously our joint case with AfriForum, and that is still going ahead. We have to go ahead with that. Most of our subscribers would have by now received an email that explains everything and informs you exactly what is going on there. We're still going ahead with the case. It is top priority for us, and we will stick to it until the bitter end, hopefully, obviously with your support. And no doubt we're going to need your support on this and other matters going forward. It's a great time. The case, we are pretty confident in the case. As we've explained in the newsletter, the minister thinks that the case is irrelevant and has called it mute or deemed it to be mute, but that doesn't stop us at all, because we don't believe so. We believe that the case needs to be heard, and for the good of all South Africans, we need to stop these regulations before they are actually implemented. If they're implemented, they will no doubt be permanent, and we cannot be faced with that kind of situation, because it will lead to further regulations and further, I want to say, prohibitions on our every movement. There's no doubt about that. On the other front, there's quite a few campaigns on the run, and a whole lot more which will be released probably tomorrow or by latest Monday. And when I say a whole lot, I mean probably around about 6. And it certainly is a busy time in Parliament. Parliament's actually just returned. They were on a break for a while. Why? Who knows why? They seem to get more holidays than anybody else. We should be complaining as South Africans, don't you think? Yeah, I think so. So and what they say, they've got 50 bills on the cards, 50 bills which they have to go through, 50 bills which have to go through public participation, and 50 bills which have to be finalized before the end of the year. I don't see how they're going to do it, but good luck. Let's make sure that our voices are heard on each and every one of those. Some of those bills have been on the table for quite some time, and it would be nice to see certain issues clarified and finalized, but who knows? Who knows? I suppose it's up to us as civilians to push them through.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, we are in a bit of a strange spot politically in South Africa at the moment, as in we have a very big election coming up in 2024 in December of this year. It is the ANC's, I think, elective conference. And strictly speaking, that shouldn't have any meaningful impact on the functions of Parliament and on lawmaking and legislation and bills. But the reality is that it very much does. And there is certainly an observed sort of gridlock happening. Now, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing really is up to the individual's interpretation. Before we segue off in that direction, Margaret Meeker has a question, and I did follow up on that for her. What happened with the Health Act proposals? Number of comments seemed to decrease. Was it hacked? Rob, I know we haven't been hacked, but I'm going to leave it in your hands. We have about 324,253 comments displaying on the ticker at the moment.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been hacked at all, and in fact, the number hasn't decreased. There was an issue right at the beginning. Remember, somebody injected data into the campaign to try and sway it in the other direction, and luckily we caught that in time. We have systems in place that can identify such issues and fake input, and we took care of those. However, we left the total unadjusted. I can't remember offhand. I think there were around about 40,000 entries that were fake, but luckily we identified them before they could actually go through. So no, the number is correct. It hasn't gone down, and it has been, each and every one of those has been individually delivered, and we have a record of every single one. So those will go to great use in our case, and also to make sure that your voice is heard in Parliament and that you are represented and your thoughts and input is correctly represented there. And of course, because we have the proof, government can't turn around and say, hey, we only had 10, which they have done before. And because we can go to them and say, here it is. We will be releasing a report pretty soon on that. And it will have a summary of all the comments, the top comments, what people's top concerns were, broken down into tables. And we'll also make all 324,000 comments available in a PDF. No doubt it'll be a large PDF, but they will all be available. But don't worry, your personal details will not be displayed. It'll just be first name, the area that you came from, the time of submission, and then your comment as such. So see if you can find yours. Let us know if you can find your comment in amongst the thousands of pages that will be there.
I was about to say that would be close to 20,000 pages of comments, if not more. It's
probably
it's gonna be big. On that note, and I think that's something people might forget is, previously we've had the problem of government just turning around and saying, oh, there were only like 2,000 comments or 10,000 comments or something similar. Therefore, they're not taking them into account or not taking them seriously into account. Now we have actual proof that the government provided us with of the internal email communications where they actually stated they received at least 300,000 comments. And their method of dealing with them was just label them as generic. So we at least have that admission from them, is they got them all, and that's the makings of the court case. And folks, just as a matter of interest, I mean, it's the 10-minute mark. The court proceedings are going ahead. We don't have a date at this point when they are, but fundraising for it is a perpetual issue. Litigation at this level is very expensive. We're unfortunately not as big as some of the other players. If you would like to contribute to us, all of the relevant links are in the description below this video or above it, depending upon which format, which platform you're watching it on. And if you're not able to make a contribution, that's fine. If you wouldn't mind maybe just sharing what we do and where we are with other people, we really fully rely on ordinary members of the public for our operational funding, as well as to get the word out. That is subscribing to our email list, sharing our stuff out there. It is really a citizen-based network, and that is generally how we function. And I mean, Rob, you've built this thing into a very effective network that with a massive reach. And hopefully with streams like this, we can actually reach the audience and give them some feedback. And, under you can tell the government exactly what you want, but please put in a comment. We need every single person to actually make a comment. And Gert Jansen van Rensburg, good evening to all, to Gideon, the Oracle in the Mirror. Good evening to you as well, Gert. Good to see you here. Um, Margaret, biggest concerns having to submit the email addresses. And unfortunately, the way that the public participation is kind of put together in South Africa, because we do it via email. And Rob, I think this is perhaps something to discuss in the sense that we are part of the parliamentary work group on public participation, DearSA. There are significant challenges to how public participation works in South Africa, and possibly one of the top concerns that haven't really been raised is information security. Is it a topic? Is it something worth discussing there? What suggestions would you have under these circumstances?
Look, it's always a concern, and it's a valid concern, and especially when you're dealing with issues such as this. Personally, when I first started doing it, I had the same concern. Government's going to know who we are, what we're saying, and so on, and then come after us individually or as a group. But that was literally almost 12 years ago, and nothing has happened to date. So I don't think it's a valid concern anymore. And if you really think about it, government's got all your data anyway. They've got your email address through your rates and taxes, and through SARS, they've got your details. When you do your e-filing, you log on, so they know your IP address, they know your telephone number, they know your first name, your last name, your address. They know everything about you. So really, it's not of any concern whatsoever. And to just set minds at ease, the only data that government does receive from us from the forms is your name and your email address. Nothing else that you enter in that goes through. The rest is just for us, for our metrics, to produce the reports and to make sure that we are serving the right people with the right information. And that's pretty much it. So your information is secure. It doesn't sit on our servers at all. It sits on, I'm not going to say, but it sits somewhere else, and it's very, very secure. And we'd never share that information with anyone, even on request. There are good laws covering that, so you can feel safe in your participation. And the reason we have to supply an email address is because that's a requirement of valid public participation. If we don't, then government can turn around and say that it's a faulty process and reject the entire campaign. So each one has to have a valid contact point with the valid email address. If you're afraid to use your own email address, then simply enter your name at DearSA or dearsouthafrica.co.za, and it will still go through as a valid entry.
That's actually, thank you, Rob. That's a great tip. And just an additional one for people, if they really do worry about their online safety and security and the email addresses, I found that Proton Mail is a relatively good option for a free and secure email sort of domain. Just don't lose your password, because chances are very good that if you should lose your password, you may never succeed in accessing that mailbox ever again. So that's just a pro tip regarding Proton Mail. But enough about that. You've launched quite a few very far-reaching campaigns over the past few weeks, Rob. I think, should we go through them? Maybe not necessarily one at a time, or we can go through them one at a time, but because they're very important, we really do want people to comment on them.
Fantastic. Well, start them off, because I haven't got it in front of me. It'll be a bit of a pain.
So I think let's actually let's start off with the we already had a previous discussion on this, but have your say on scrapping the red tape for independent power producers. So essentially, the brief summary on this one, and it's very relevant to our current South African sort of ambience. We have had about 16,000 or just short of 16,000 comments on it. And it says, scrap the red tape. Should independent power producers be allowed to immediately supply South Africa with electricity? Is there a need to immediately amend legislation? What is best suited? Renewables, coal, nuclear, hydro, imports, or other forms of generation? Those are the questions we ask you as members of the public. So, Rob, tell us a bit about this campaign, where it comes from, and where we intend on going with it.
So that was a bit of a proactive campaign. We are collecting proposals from the public and other institutions or organizations just to present to government what we think might be alternative and more viable ideas than an ESCOM 2. Nobody quite understands how an ESCOM the second can actually be of any benefit to the country. It's just going to be another state-owned entity that will fail, just like every other one has. No doubt about that. It might take a bit more time, but it will face the same problems with the same people running it. So there's some good proposals that are coming through, which we will present. A lot of them are referring to some measures that Sora Ramaphosa did mention already, rooftop solar and so on, which we think is absolutely a great proposal. We'll keep it going, that campaign, indefinitely, because everybody has an idea and a concern. Doesn't matter who you are. You can be a big corporate and energy expert, or just normal Joe like me and Gideon, and have your say. You might have a brilliant idea that might actually work. So if you have an idea that might keep the lights on, and I need some more lights on here, as you can see, then please go have your say there. Offer some suggestions, and it really doesn't matter what you can. If you think it's a stupid idea, then it's not a stupid idea. So go and suggest something there, please.
Fantastic, Rob. Thank you. That's a superb, I think, encouragement for people to please go. It's right under our campaign tabs. You won't struggle to find it. Slight scroll down and go have your say. Then the next one up from that is the game meat strategy for South Africa. So for 950 comments, closes on the 17th of August. So not a lot of time left, about a week only, 7 days. The Ministry of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment calls for comment on the draft game meat strategy for SA. And the bullet points here is to expand, differentiate and formalize the game meat industry in SA, to formalize the game meat sector and open doors for informal game meat traders and previously disadvantaged communities, to achieve economies of scale necessary for commercial ventures, and to create wealth, jobs and resilient meat-based food security. So all in all, this actually sounds like quite a positive initiative, long overdue. Having dipped my toes into this a couple of years back already, when the first rumblings of actually commercializing the game meat industry started, there were some significant practical and regulatory problems. That seems to have been kind of dealt with. This appears to be the next step. Rob, what's the story with this one?
Yeah, there's good points and bad points, Gideon. The good points are that it definitely will promote businesses, especially in the informal market, and regulate the trade of game meat. So from that point of view, conservation point of view, it is definitely a plus. There might be some issues. Some skeptics are saying that it might actually promote the illegal trade and illegal hunting, which I feel might be a valid concern, as it might be a great business opportunity, especially in the tough economic climate that we face now. Will it promote poaching and so on? Well, we'll have to see. Yeah, the problem here is government has great ideas, and but certainly lacks the ability to implement those or enforce such legislation. And I feel this might be another case of that. Great ideas, certainly great for the economy, certainly what South Africa needs, but yeah, we'll be able to pull it off successfully and safely.
Well, and this is the thing also, I think this is where public participation is vital, especially from the relevant stakeholders, to shape that legislation going forward and to address these concerns, which is exactly why everyone commenting on it that has something to say. Please go and give your inputs on that campaign. You only have about 7 days left until it closes. And unless there is some form of significant public comment or suggestions from it, it's probably going to just go through the way it presently stands, I think, unless there are probably some internal stakeholders that have it changed. I suspect that's kind of how it's going to be, Rob.
Yep, I don't think it'll change much there. It's quite a confusing piece of legislation. or it's actually just a strategy at this stage. It's not even legislation. So if you've missed it or you don't understand it, it will reappear at a later stage as a bill or an amendment to an existing act.
Fantastic. Okay, so moving on to the next one that's also currently, and this is a very hot topic. This gets everyone excited, either positively or negatively. And it's fracking regulations, the exploring and production of onshore oil and gas requiring fracking. So far, 1,127 comments individually delivered, and this campaign closes, or rather, comment period closes on the 25th of August, end of this month. So a little bit more time than the one pertaining the game eat strategy, but also not exactly a lot of time remaining. The Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment has published its proposed regulation pertaining to the exploration and production of onshore oil and gas requiring hydraulic fracturing and is asking you to comment. The regulations identify prohibited activities and prohibited geographic areas for the use of hydraulic fracturing technology, which include the use of potable water for hydraulic fracturing activities and the use of municipal water treatment facilities for the disposal of waste from hydraulic fracturing operations. The hydraulic fracturing regulation will be supported by 2 minimum information requirements, or MIRs. Rob, tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so fracking is always a hot topic. There's no doubt about that. It definitely kicks up some dust in the Karoo. I did a great interview. Sorry, if you hear the noise, that's my dog rolling around like a maniac. I did a great interview with Jonathan Deal, who's been quite involved in fracking for many years. He actually won I think it's the Goldman Environmental Award for his efforts in fighting fracking. And I interviewed him just to get an idea on what the opposition is to fracking. Is it such a bad thing? How can it be bad if it has such a good economic benefit, which South Africa does need? But he raised some incredibly valid points about fracking in South Africa, fracking in South Africa versus fracking in the US. We have a very different geology in South Africa, especially in the Karoo, and it's a very fragile environment. And basically, it can be extremely dangerous to drill wells there so deep down. And the problem that he actually mentioned was that it's not just one or two wells; it's literally hundreds or even thousands of wells that will be drilled all over the Karoo, and that will really upset the bedrock there, which is quite dangerous to do. It'll change the environment completely and create sinkholes and all sorts of problems. Not to mention contaminating groundwater, which is pretty scarce in that region anyway. So it could decimate the Karoo entirely. But then again, there's some other people who say that it's a good thing and we need to do it because of the energy problems and hopefully becoming more energy independent from the rest of the world.
So there's already opposing comments on it on the comment section, and this is good because you know Margaret's comment made me laugh, and then we have Lucanio, and I think both of you have your valid, relevant individual opinions and say. So I therefore encourage both of you to please go and have that say in the comments on this proposal on the fracking regulations, so you can find them. I'm sure Jane is going to put them in the comment section any minute. She already did. She is way ahead of the curve. That is where you can find them, and please go and have your say, guys, because your opinions do matter. They make a massive difference to our democracy. And Margaret, thank you for your kind words as well. This is why DearSA exists, and this is also what we hope to expand upon, improve upon, and continue achieving. Rob, I ran out of adjectives there, but anyway, that's a common problem for me at this stage. So, Michelle Vermeulen, many campaigns going. People need to become active and participate in these various campaigns to submit your comments, input, objections, whatever you say. South Africa, let your voice be heard. Margaret, Michelle, I wish I could shout this and echo it from the rooftops, because that's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah, it is, Gideon.
Right.
I often get emails from people saying, why should we have our say? It won't make a difference. In fact, I get them on a daily basis, and it does. Every comment from the public does make a difference, and it makes a difference in many ways. Number one, it educates you as to what's going on in your democracy. It educates you as to the policy. You start talking about it to your friends. You raise valid points. They raise valid points. Number two, the law really states that government has to consider and acknowledge every single public comment that does present itself. So the way our system works is that each comment is delivered individually, not as a petition or not as a group, but individually, which means government has to consider and acknowledge every one of those.
That's the thing. And just to I think address also Andre's concern about the butchering of the cannabis bill, and the comments ignored. The massive unfortunate part of the cannabis bill is our last campaign on that, which closed on the 13th of May this year. We only got 2,379 comments on it. And I think, if I remember correctly, I'm going to check the report quickly, what the outcome of that was. But I think there was a lot of concern about it, and actually opposing the what one could say was perhaps some more common sense elements in the bill. There was a lot of public concern about it to the other side. So about 37% did not support the bill, and 45% did, and 17% were on the fence. So that was quite low comment turnout. And of the comments that did turn out, it was a highly contested one, shall we say. This was one of the few campaigns where the public was actually almost split exactly down the middle. We don't see that very often. So I think I'm not one to give advice, but if people want to get bills to pass, there needs to be a media campaign and driver behind it, in order to educate the public. Because I think what people also don't understand is what the cannabis bill was trying to achieve, and why it would have been a good thing. And that is purely an element of not enough information. Moving on to less serious matters, there's a next campaign.
Yep. If I may just jump in there. Sorry, man.
Jump right in.
You raise a really good point. I think the public, we invite the public to comment, but what we also value is the quality of your comments. If you've got information on a particular bill or on a particular topic, say for instance the cannabis bill, that we've perhaps missed, please send it to us. We invite collaboration from individuals, from other organizations, from whoever you may be. We don't take a stance on anything. It can be either for it or against it. As long as you have quality content that others can see, we will post that on the campaign information pages. If you look there, you'll see there's an opportunity for other organizations to place their logo, their contact details, and their statement there. Please encourage your organization, or encourage other organizations that you might be supporting. Get them to send their stuff through. Really, it makes a big difference. And government isn't really after them. They don't care about the number of comments that come through. But what really matters is the quality of those comments. And good suggestions will be adhered to. They will be acknowledged and listened to.
Well, that is thanks, Rob. I think that was well. No, I'm just giving you the stage there. I think that's valid, and I put the email address, the info@dearsouthafrica.co, under the bottom of the screen. If you have information you want to give us, if you want to get in touch, if you want to tell us about certain things, or get submit something for publication, please use that email address. It's one way of getting a hold of us. Moving on to our next campaign. This one is slightly less serious. Well, it depends. It depends wholly how into your rugby you are, and pertains the Newlands Stadium demolition development project. So far, 147 comments delivered. The description of the campaign is: the historic Newlands Rugby Stadium is set for possible demolition to make way for housing and office developments. However, a proposal is on the table to declare the stadium a heritage site, global interest museum, local business centre, and tourist attraction. The cost of the demolition is roughly 300 million plus housing, office development costs, and then there's the economic benefit of the heritage development. Now, I'm just going to quickly wade in on this as an outsider, as a Free State supporter that grew up in Pretoria and went to school right across from Loftus Versfeld. I can promise you one thing, that no Blue Bulls supporter in their right mind would allow Loftus Versfeld to be demolished. Newlands Rugby Stadium is also, I believe, home to one of the oldest, or if not still the oldest, existing rugby field in South Africa, where I think one of the first tests between the Springboks and England was played back in the early 1900s. So there's certainly a heritage element present there. Other people, of course, have the opinion that screw the heritage element. It's prime real estate in the middle of densely populated Newlands. Let's smash it, build a high-density complex of sorts, and just flood the already overstrained road infrastructure in the area with more traffic so that no one can ever get anywhere and will be permanently gridlocked. This is me living just down the road from it. Rob, your view on this?
Yeah, so we've actually, if you notice there, the counter hasn't really moved as such on that. We're awaiting more information on that campaign. We've kept it up there just so that you can understand what it's all about. But yeah, there is an organization that asks us to run that campaign for them, and that's what we do. We do collaborate with other people to get public opinion, which they can use in presenting to the heritage, Cape Heritage, and other government institutions. So we've put it on hold for now, on ice. You can still go have a look there, have your say if you want, but comments won't go through to government just yet. We're keeping them all in the background. But yeah, it is a contentious issue. It's a great historical venue. There's no doubt about that. It was their place where Nelson Mandela stood up and did his thing. It's got so many other great events, historical events in it, and great international accreditation too. It might be a bit of a white elephant as it stands now, but there's no reason it can't be turned into something that is really worthwhile. I don't think any South African would want to see it demolished or turned into a housing complex. That just really doesn't make any sense at all to whatever we're trying to do. So yeah, it's a nice feel good campaign, I think there, and it'll be great to see what South Africans actually feel. Should we spend money on heritage, or should we just build housing? Up to you.
Well, this is the interesting thing. It is a very good feel-good campaign, but I also think that there's additional elements to it, and a lot of my inner capitalist always goes, oh, but surely the housing or the offices would be more meaningful. And then you start thinking, okay, but you look at how densely populated this particular area of Cape Town already is. You think of the strain that is put on the sewage system, that's put on the road network that is already overstrained already and not coping. I mean, compare the traffic flows in the southern suburbs of Cape Town to the traffic flows of Pretoria and even Johannesburg, and you realize how colossal the problem is down here, pertaining possibly bad or insufficient city planning. So there definitely is a very valid contra-argument to be made against this if you don't want to go the heritage route. But enough about that. Last campaign we're going to talk about tonight, and this is possibly one of the most important ones. 99 comments delivered so far. It closes on the 26th of August, so end of this month as well. Proposals to restrict and regulate the scrap metal trade. The Department of Trade and Industry and Competition has gazetted its draft policy proposals to regulate and restrict the trade of scrap metal in South Africa for public comment. Theft of copper and other metals hit South Africa's infrastructure hard, leading to extended power disruptions in neighborhoods and industry, and even toppling entire railway systems for months on end. So the summary of the proposals, I'll quickly run through them. Impose a 6-month ban on the exports of scrap metal from South Africa, expanding the definition of waste and scrap metal to include other common types of metal that are exported, temporarily suspending the price preference system, PPS, for scrap metal exports with some exceptions, developing a permit system for the export of these metal products, developing a permit system for the import of furnaces and other scrap metal transformation machines, creating a registration regime for scrap metal sellers, restrictions on who can sell scrap metal and adding requirements that buyers only purchase from registered sellers, beefing up border controls, blacklisting offenders, and prohibiting the use of cash in scrap metal transactions. It's a major mouthful there. Rob, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an extremely valid piece of legislation that perhaps might not be stringent enough. We have a massive problem with infrastructure damage in South Africa due to cable theft. Recently, uh, this area went off through load shedding, and then didn't come back on until 24 hours later because during load shedding, someone had stolen the cables. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful, and that seems to be quite a frequent occurrence in South Africa. There needs to be some sort of legislation. Gideon, you and I chatted earlier on about this, which was great. Perhaps a database. I know this, as you said, there is an existing database and centralized system of buyers versus sellers, but that needs to be enforced again. We know in South Africa that most of the uh, precious metals and the copper, especially the copper, exits the country and ends up in China, which is a big problem. Raises some questions as to around who's actually fueling this. Is it a supply and demand issue? Is there great demand for it? Therefore, that will encourage theft and loss. Who knows? Is it an economic situation driven by poverty and a need to survive? Uh, I don't know. It seems to be incredibly organized crime, and because it's a high value stake, I'd say it's definitely a demand versus supply issue. Therefore, regulation would be good. However, once again, it's the enforcement of those measures that is a concern to us.
That's a very valid point, and I think the more that I read about how the South African underworld works, in the sense how there's almost a syndicate or a mafia in every illicit industry and even legal industry that sort of straddle that fence on legality and illegality. I mean, we have construction mafias, we have taxi associations that almost operate as mafias in the sense of how they conduct their own internal regulation through violence. We have the gangs on the Cape Flats. We have private security organizations that are owned by criminals and are used for criminal reasons, but that still escape regulatory crackdowns miraculously. And you find this web of criminality reaches its tentacles into almost higher political office and up into the senior ranks of the South African Police Service. So it becomes this almost Byzantine, convoluted problem that always has a very simple solution, but you always find that there's that little bit, just too much lack of political will to ever follow through on it, which makes bills like this very attractive in the sense it looks like someone is taking massive action. Sometimes they're just re-emphasizing action that they should already be taking or have already taken, but just haven't advertised. But I think it's a very important bill, and I think people should definitely go comment on it. And Lucanio, exactly, you are absolutely welcome to your view, and I think this is an important comment to go put on that Newlands demolition campaign. So please go and do it. With regards to Anna-Reese's comment, we need people like you, Anna-Reese, to help us get our info out to the people that need to hear it. This is how public networking and our organization works, is we can put the stuff to you. We can have these discussions. We love interacting with our audience, but we need you guys to be our messengers. Without you, we're not going to achieve much. And I think, Rob, some comments on that, maybe.
Yeah, no, like I said, this is not just us doing the work. We're simply the vehicle that enables you to send your comment through. But mass participation is always the key to success. And the more people that get involved, the greater the number of stakeholders should this go the legal route. And then it becomes a powerful movement. But as you say, Gideon, the DearSA spends a considerable amount of money on marketing, trying to, I don't mean marketing the organization, I mean promoting each and every campaign. And yeah, we can only go so far as a nonprofit reliant on public funding. And let's get something clear here: 95% of our funding comes from individuals in the public, individuals like the people who are watching this right now. And I'm not joking when I say it's 95%. So yeah, it's we're extremely reliant on people to share the campaigns, share your participation, and encourage others to do the same. At the end of the day, we just want more participation. That's all. We funds would be great and donations would be great, but the most valuable thing anyone can give us, any member of the public can give us, is their participation.
Exactly that. And for those of you who would like to fund us, plenty of links in the description above and below this video, how you can help us with one source, or you can become one of our invaluable monthly contributors. We, of course, are grateful to any and all who do. And as Rob rightfully says, even those that cannot or do not want to contribute, just by sharing what we do and by participating in the campaigns and by telling your friends and family about us, that is an invaluable networking task that you perform, and we're grateful for that as well. So thank you to all of you that have done it. And Michelle, thank you for your enthusiasm. It is this type of infectious enthusiasm of people who really care about their own, participating actively in their own governance, that is what's the fuel in our fuel tank. And this kind of brings our discussion to a close this evening. It's been a bit of a shorter show. Rob, is there anything specific you'd like to talk to the audience about? They're more than welcome to still pop questions in. We are still going to be here a few minutes, and we'll answer them. But from your side, what else is new, and what else is up and coming?
You love putting me on the spot, Gideon.
Especially when you've had a hard day, and we've already had like 5 interviews together.
We have. It's been a crazy day. It's been a crazy day, and I feel it's going to get even crazier as we approach the end of the year. You know, uh, traditionally we've been doing this. Well, we've been doing this for how many years now? We're running on 4 or 5 years now.
About 5
And
years and 40
traditionally,
comments later.
exactly. And yeah, traditionally towards the end of the year, government gets super busy, and especially around about December, they tend to take advantage of the public holidays and the long breaks, and then flood the public with bills and amendments and changes to legislation. Like I said early on, there are 50 bills currently before Parliament, and no doubt there will be 50 more before the end of the year. So don't worry, we'll keep on top of all of them. The important ones we'll absolutely let you know about, and definitely have your say and keep having your say. It does make a difference. Please don't think it doesn't. It really does.
And that's the bombshell of it. So we'll stay at the coalface, ladies and gentlemen. We will continue keeping you informed as to what's going on. We have people. I'm sometimes one of them, but it's mostly Rob and the other unnamed folks who are safely anonymous, but whose eyes are red from doing it, reading that government gazette every Friday, and scanning through what is going to have the most impact on ordinary people's lives. And then Rob builds a campaign around it. If you've got anything you would like us to talk about in the next live stream, which will be next week, Wednesday, pop it through to info@dearsouthafrica.coza, and we can actually engage with your comment. We really appreciate you taking your time on your Wednesday night to listen to us. Rob, thank you for joining me. And to the listeners, have a wonderful week. Stay safe, and see you next week right here on DearSA. Cheerio.